This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Hello, everyone. Welcome our wonderful, fabulous audience on the show, Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. On this show, we have conversations with incredible people who are contributing substantially to improving education worldwide, not only in the United States. And today as well, we have a fabulous guest, Iuri Melo. Welcome, Iuri, on Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.
Barb, I feel inspired already, so let's go. Thanks for letting me come, and I'm excited. Let's see where this goes today. Let's see where it takes us, huh?
You're very welcome. I'm just as excited because we just want to improve education for children so they feel better. And also parents too, and teachers. Isn't it like we improve in everybody's world? That's what I think. What do you think?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I'm a big fan. I mean, I'm a parent of five myself, right? I've got kids from two wonderful daughters first, then two boys, then one last girl, and I mean, from the age of I think 24 to 14, and it's awesome. And honestly, I'm completely inspired by adolescents and teens, but we
Wow.
absolutely believe in the development of parents, in the education, and helping them to feel a little bit more inspired and more optimistic. In part because when we feel that way, right, we just do better, we think better, we have a
Yes.
little bit longer of a fuse, we're more patient, and I think when we do that, I think right as a whole, right, we absolutely all win. And so we've found some ways, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it in a little bit, but to
Yeah.
support parents as well, and we're really excited about those, and I think parents will be
Yes.
as well.
Maybe that's what we have to stress more on social media, that education really is everybody's business. Maybe it doesn't always feel like that for some people, right? If they don't have children in school, they might not feel that this is something that is about them too, but it is, because we all interact with the people who go to school. And when they grow up, we're going to be interact. Can you imagine? Like, they're going to be adults. So don't we want to interact with adults who had good education and they are good people as a result of the good education? That's how I'm thinking about it holistically. But before you see, we already jumping in, but I
I
have to
love it.
still introduce you. That's the danger of being on Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. You just jump in right
We get
away.
inspired. We get inspired.
Yes, and we're both passionate about education. That's
Yes.
exactly what it is. And you are founder and CEO of, I guess, a relatively new organization initiative. It's called SchoolPulse. And if you could tell us about this organization, and even just like, how did you start? Why
Sure.
why are we here? How did we get to this point of School Plus?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a brief history and maybe a little bit of our genesis story a little bit. I think you'll find that it's kind of an interesting story. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I've really been doing that for about 20 years. And really the large majority of my time has been spent in private practice. And throughout the years, I published a couple of books, which I think really connected me to a couple of the local principals here in town, I think, who are always looking for positivity. And
Mm-hmm.
one especially, I think, is quite an innovative principal, always ready to kind of take on new ideas and new concepts like that, which I find, by the way, is not true all the time. I think what we
No.
find is sometimes schools are a little bit, they're kind of closed systems a little bit at times.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it's really fun sometimes when we meet principals or other district leaders who are really innovative, who want to find the absolute best solutions and implement them. But one of the things that happened here in our community, so I live in southern Utah in an area called St. George. And honestly, Barb, it's a fabulous place. Like, it's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. We're literally plopped down in the middle of these beautiful just national parks, from Zion National Park to Bryce to Grand Canyon to Lake Powell. We're just
Yeah.
this beautiful high desert, just kind of an idyllic
Keep going, and I will
little
want to
area.
go there now.
Come visit, Barbara. It's absolutely fabulous. It really is. But we had a tragedy in 2017. Well, not just one, but we had seven students in our area that took their life by suicide. And it wasn't just, I think, here locally, but it was kind of in Utah. as a whole. I mean, I remember even up north, closer to Salt Lake City, we had a school, just one school that lost seven or six or seven students to
Mhm.
suicide. It was incredible. And this principal, and at that point, my two older daughters were going to school at this principal's school, and he lost two students to suicide, students that he felt were not on his radar. Like he
Oh
just not
gosh.
anticipate that. Wonderful people who were involved, who participated, and they ended up taking their life that way. And he reached out to me, I think in part because he was experiencing so much pressure. I think if at the district level, from the community as a whole, um, and honestly, what he felt he had at his disposal were mostly reactive tools, like just kind of we passively waiting for crisis to happen and then intervening in some way.
Yeah.
And being the innovator that he was and being the forward thinker that he is still, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, like I just have to do something more than this. We have to do something more than to just create these tip or crisis lines. By then, it's too far. We have to be more proactive. We have to be more engaged. I want to, in a sense, right, feel the
Mhm.
pulse of the student body instead of just kind of being unaware of what's going on." And that was really the beginning. At that point, I communicated this idea and others with who is now my co-founder, Trent Staley, who's kind of the software engineer of the process. I'm kind of
Mhm.
the psychology behind it. And we began in very simple ways. I mean, at that point, we started right in that school. He said, "Let's give it a go." And all that we were doing at that point, Barbara, is we would just send out one text a week with just a little questionnaire, and the students would respond with a one, two, three, or four. And at that point, we didn't even have live engagement or live interaction. We would just have these little canned messages that I would
Yeah.
write, and that was it. And then, of course, I mean, as we've then began to to meet other schools and other administrators and other school counselors and student service directors, et cetera, and as we began to listen, right, to their needs, their overwhelm, the areas where they felt like they needed to be rescued, we then ended up kind of growing our service so that it became this little suite, right, of really powerful, not just student success activities, but restorative practice activities. Of course, our text based support that now has live support from 8 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week throughout the entire year. And we're saving lives, we're improving lives, we're enhancing lives, not just of students, by the way. Back to your conversation about parents, with parents as well. I mean, we invite parents to participate. And as you know, parents themselves, I mean, they're struggling with the depression or substance abuse or divorce or the loss of a parent or whoever it is. And we just do the very best we can to proactively engage those individuals, to provide them with the absolute best and most inspiring positive psychology, growth mindset, and cognitive behavioral strategies in a way that's not cringy, in a way that's fun, it's short, it's easy to digest.
Mhm.
And then we provide that live support and some really extraordinary, what I feel are the best in the business, obviously. I mean, that's why I'm here, but just the best in the business kind of content that we can then provide to schools. So that's kind of how we began. And just little by little, we've grown. It's a very small team, but we pack a punch for sure. And we just try to grow from school that loves us to the next school, to the next
Yes.
district, to a state level
That's how it rolls, right?
contract. That's how it rolls, right?
But Yuri, I mean,
So
the beginning is not a small beginning. It's a dramatic beginning. And you said something that is very, very interesting, very powerful also, that the principal at that time said, I'm not just interested anymore in maintaining these crises. Because actually, when you think about it, every school, they've got it down. And as a parent, you get the emails, oh, by the way, there'll be another drill, blah, blah, blah. They got this crisis down, I think, to a certain extent, right? What they can, what they are supposed to do. It's a mandate. They have to all figure it
sure.
out. They have to have drills. They have to have practices. Everybody's got it down. But he said something totally powerful and different than any other principles out there, I guess. I'm no longer interested in just maintaining this. I want to do something that is more like preventive. I
Yeah.
think that is probably actually a big overall issue with education that we are not really preventing much.
Yeah, and I think it's been an interesting area as I've once again interacted with lots of schools, and I just have to say, like, overwhelmingly, I think schools are doing extraordinary. I think they're trying really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're limited, right? I mean, they're limited, number one, by the hours that they're at the school, and obviously we want to provide and come to the rescue. And I always tell people that what I want to do is the moment that I walk into a school, I want to immediately multiply that school's ability to provide the best support to their school, the best support to their students. But I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's because prevention is difficult to measure.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to measure prevention. It's hard to measure something that doesn't happen, right?
Oh
I'll
yeah,
give you an example.
it is.
Right at the end of last year in Wisconsin, there was that school shooting. I don't know if you remember. I think it was at a
Mm-hmm.
junior high or a middle school, right? Well, and I kid you not, this is going to sound a little bit fantastic, but we have a great partnership with several schools in Wisconsin and a really wonderful clinic, the Marshfield Clinic up there, who really believes in prevention and has facilitated our entrance into schools. But one of the schools that we were providing support for in Wisconsin, and one of the students that we're engaging in, right? So they were participating in our text-based support. We're texting that student twice a week with outstanding content and live support. And that very same day that that shooting happened, we had another student that reached out to us who reported to our team that they themselves were having homicidal ideation. And we were able to intervene with that student to provide support to them, and more importantly,
Mm-hmm.
to connect them to the resources right there, to the principal, and then obviously to the family. But the best part about this is everybody knows about this school, right, where the shooting happened, right? But nobody knows about this other school, right, that we
Yeah.
intervened with. And I'm not trying to say that, hey, we stopped a school shooting, because that's not what's important.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to say is we had a student that reported that had enough guts, honestly. I just love that student for doing that, to report that, and we were able to intervene with that student. It was just powerful. And so I think sometimes prevention is challenging because it's difficult to measure. And when schools are
It
looking
is.
for ways to intervene, I always notice that the first place that they go is they go towards assessments, like we have to find a way to assess. Then they
Mm-hmm.
go to awareness. We got to build awareness. And then they almost kind of skip prevention and they go straight to intervention, right? Which is where the crisis lines are, it's where the tip lines are.
Yeah.
And our goal has always been like, man, we have to strike at the root a little bit more. And instead of just focusing on the risk factors, right, on the drills and the exercises, and there's a place for those, of course. But our goal and what our mission has always been is, let's find a way, a good way, an easy way, an effortless way to build the protective factors for our kids. And that's really our goal. That's really our objective, is to provide the kind of content to these students, to these schools, to these parents that's easy to utilize, that's inspiring, like the name of your show, right? And that really builds the protective factors, the things that could potentially insulate these children from suicidal ideation, from sadness,
Yeah.
depression, trauma. Excuse me. And the evidence is actually good that it does that. And so we feel very confident that, and it's not just us. There are lots of other really extraordinary services out there that are doing this as well. We just happen to have a little bit of a unique and innovative approach.
Yeah.
Anyways, probably more than you wanted to know, but
No, I
yeah.
mean, this is all fascinating and very needed. And I also want to add to this that prevention piece is also very difficult because when you look at what is flooding our young people's brains, and that is also contributing, right, to not being able to build maybe resilience as much. It's just there's too much information, there's too much information that they don't know how to control because there is social media, there's phones. So this is a very difficult time to do this work, considering all these forces, the outside forces that are very powerful and very nuanced, because these young people might not consider that they are controlled by the phones, by the social media, but they are. but they don't always understand that. So you are, in a way, also, I'm not saying fighting against this, but you deal with these influences as well, whether you want or not, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and we spend an incredible amount of time training our team and supporting our
Hmm.
team. And I love our team. Like, I mean, we have interactions, live interactions with students that in my mind are absolutely like Nobel Prize winning engagements. I mean, just incredible things, right? And I'm not just talking about crisis, right? I'm not just talking about, somebody reporting physical or sexual abuse or
Yeah.
suicidal or homicidal ideation. Like, we're talking about students that were just burned out, or they've lost a loved one, or they're dealing with a parent's divorce, or they're dealing with gang
Hmm.
involvement or violence at school or whatever it is, or kids who are being bullied or just sad or lonely or whatever it is, right? And our team, the power, I'm telling you, the power of a kind, gentle, and enthusiastic voice, even over text, is transforming. Like, it is
Wow.
absolutely transforming. And I have to say, we've developed, the other co-founder, Trent Staley, developed or utilizes a little, this is a little more techy, but kind of a sentiment algorithm. And what that algorithm does is it takes every single text that these youth, like during a conversation, right? And it just takes that language, and then at the bottom of the text, it just provides a little sentiment score from -9 to +9.
Mhm.
The reason why we've added that to the text is, of course, because we want to measure, right? We want to measure the impact or the influence that our interactions have with individual students. And what we find is that when students engage with our team, we are able to influence in a positive way that sentiment score by 40 to 60% in a positive way. Now, the reason why that matters, right? And this is part of kind of our positive psychology
Mhm.
philosophy, right? Is the idea that we believe, and actually the evidence has shown now, right, that success revolves around happiness, right? And so when we're able to
Yeah.
raise someone's joy, optimism, hope,
Mhm.
happiness, levels of gratitude, what happens to our brains, right, is there's this, happiness advantage, right? It's a fabulous book, by the way, by Sean Aker. I'm sure you've read it, or if you haven't, I hope you do, because I think you'll love it. But there's this happiness
Mhm.
advantage. And all that really means is that when we're happy, right? Happier, when you're happier as a parent, Barbara, when I'm happy as a parent, when teachers are happier, when students are happier, we're more creative. Our emotional endurance goes up, our psychological
Yeah.
muscle goes up, like
Mm.
our ability to make better decisions is improved, our patience is longer, like our ability to be more resilient is improved. And so the impact of
Mhm.
joy, of increased happiness is just an overall positive outcome. Excuse me. And so in a way, one by one, student by student, and of course we have other tools that are school wide, but that is our goal, is as we enhance joy, happiness, as we provide students with the kind of mindset and perspective that can elevate the way that they interpret the world around them. And I've
Mhm.
always believed, right, that the way that we interpret the events in our lives matter more than the events themselves, right? Our
Sure.
psychology is everything, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can upgrade that for students, then we believe that their ability to succeed in school, that their ability to collaborate with others, to increase their friendship, to increase their joy, to increase their relationships is improved. And that's ultimately what we want. So
Totally.
we just, yeah, so it's fun.
But from hearing about, because as we speak, I hear so many cool things what you do. But I would like for our wonderful visitor, for our wonderful listener and viewer, you, our wonderful listener and viewer, I would like I would like Yuri to speak directly to you as far as, like, if someone who's listening to us right now, wanted to, like, contract with you, right?
Oh,
Collaborate
sure.
with you. Let's say it's a principal or a teacher and they're interested in this. If this collaboration, when the collaboration takes place, what can they expect? What is actually happening and what kind of activities you provide, so the viewer has a clear kind of idea what would be actually happening, what it would look like,
I
right?
love it. Yeah, I think that would be great. I think the very first thing that would happen, right, is, and
Yeah.
this is what happens with every school, is we usually end up meeting with the decision makers at that school, sometimes at the district level as well. And so we would love to meet you. We'd love to know what's going fabulous in your school, what areas you're struggling with your school. Our role with schools, and I make this very clear, in fact, this is one of those areas that I feel we obsess about,
Hmm.
is I think we've tried to listen very hard to schools. I think we understand and we respect their overwhelm. And so as a result, our goal is really to come to the rescue. And that's our whole suite of services has been done in a way that we're not trying to come into a school and surgically change everything that they're doing. That's not what we're trying to do. We really want to come in and provide them with tools that, I know it's cliche to say that they can plug and play, but it's really true. Like that they can plug, play, and they can walk
Wow.
away and know that they've literally just created a safety system for their students, and they're giving their staff, their faculty, their teachers, their counselors the best tools in the industry to intervene with these students. So for example, let's say we've got a
Hmm.
school, a principal comes in and say, hey, we're in, of course we contract out, whether it's for a year or a multi-year deal. I feel like we're very, very affordable, especially compared to some, and especially compared to what we do. And I think the principals agree with that. But the very first thing that we do when we walk into a school is we begin our email campaign. We have one email that we send per week. And this is just the easiest way, right? Usually schools function within kind of a tiered system, right? They have to provide whole school supports, kind of tier one type MTSS or PBIS interventions, right? Then tier two for those
Hmm.
students who maybe are struggling either academically or behaviorally. And then tier three, right? For those students who are really struggling, they want to provide individualized resources and tools. And that's what we want to do. We want to be a PBIS, we want to be an MTSS solution the moment we walk into that building. And our email campaign is just the very first step. It's effortless almost, and the school doesn't need to run it. We run it. So the very first thing that we do is we basically we gather from the school, right, a list of parents and their emails and their students and their emails, and oftentimes schools include their staff as well. And we send our incredible student success activities, which are videos mixed in with kind of our reflection questions and quiz questions as well, so that people can utilize them in a classroom. And those go out to every parent once a week with content that is relevant for the education of their child, that is relevant to the
Hmm.
happiness and joy and success of their kid, in part because we respect parents, right? We want to be, number one, totally transparent. We have fabulous content. Like, we have not heard one negative thing about our content, and that can be challenging, right? Because in a
Yeah.
way, we're talking about some challenging things, right? I mean, we may be talking about sadness, we may be talking about loneliness, we may be talking about other things, but the large majority, and I think this is the really important part, is our content is really less focused on the risk, right? We understand that there's risk. We understand that there's illness. We understand that there's diagnosis. Our job is not to do that per se. Our job is to provide those students with every tool and strategy that will help them to succeed. Like, we want to match the objective of the school, which is an instructional and educational facility, and we just provide content to help the students' success. So that's the very first thing. Once again, we create that, the schools provide this one time, and then we
Hmm.
run it. The schools don't even have to touch it. And they've literally just provided every parent and student with an incredible way to kind of raise their psychology. Number two, we begin our text-based campaign, right? Whether it's for the entire student body or it's just for students that they feel are in need, however schools want to run it.
Hmm.
But the moment a student is introduced, the moment a student is opted in, and they don't have to download an app, it's not an application, we
Okay.
text that student directly, right to their phone, twice a week, and we have a live team that supports them. And so let's say you're a counselor, right? And you've got a student that walks into your office and maybe they're struggling, maybe their parents are going through a divorce, or they're struggling in school, or they don't have any friends, or they're being bullied, or maybe they're sad, maybe they've
Hmm.
dealt with suicidal ideation or with self-harm.
Yep.
And the counselor literally opts that student in, and they've just given them, that student, this tool that's at work for them 365 days a year, with live support when they're not there, when they're at meetings or when they're at trainings. And it's incredible. And once again, the schools do nothing. We're providing this support.
Yeah.
And of course, when they're a crisis, right, we engage that school, we collaborate with them, and we get help to those students individually. And then, of course, we have those other tools that we've created, our restorative practice tools, right? When students are in trouble discipline wise, whether they're missing school or they're tardy or
Mm-hmm.
they're fighting or they've made some ridiculous or discriminatory statement at a football game or a soccer game, or they're using AI inappropriately, or maybe they've been caught smoking weed in the bathroom or whatever it is, right? And instead of just being punitive in their approach, they want to provide an educational opportunity that's quick, effective, measurable, and gets that kid back into the classroom, which is where they need to be. And so we've created all of these things based on what we're hearing, and we just try to give easy to use, easy to find, effective and measurable tools that, once again, is not this high level training, lots of hours for their staff. We don't want to do that. We come in, deliver, provide
Yeah.
outcomes, and we're not there to change the entire culture, even though we are going to impact it. We want to impact the atmosphere, but we do it in ways that are mindful of the burden and the struggle that it already is for those individuals. So,
This is amazing. I also wonder how this is introduced then to children, to teens. I mean, they know there is school counselor, there is social workers. Each school has a little bit different team. There are not many of these people in the school, right? I mean,
yeah,
it depends on the size. In my
sure.
child's school, there is one counselor and there is a social worker. That is it. There is a psychologist, but they mainly just work on testing,
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis, right, towards IEP plan. So there is no, this is not a team. When you're talking about two people, it's just counselor and social worker. So their hands are probably full. So I wonder, and they know these people, these children,
Sure.
obviously. But when you come in, this is a outsider, right, team. And I wonder how kids are introduced to this. Like, what happens? Do you introduce yourself to children? Like, how is this really
Yeah, I love it.
happening, right? That could be interesting too, and it could help.
It does, and we do it in a variety of ways. I mean, I don't know if you can see this little scan me button right here on the right side of the screen or not, but we actually create some really fun, cool, kind of positive psychology and inspirational psychology
Mhm.
with these little QR codes. And the principals actually put these throughout the schools, and the kids literally just grab their phone,
Yep.
they just scan that, and they're in. I mean, they literally get a text that just says, "Hey, welcome to SchoolPulse." So that's one way. A lot of
Yeah.
times, schools will also begin with kind of an introduction. Sometimes they have kind of a peer group that will introduce the service to the
Mm-hmm.
school. And a lot of times, schools will just say, "Hey, Yuri, can you do a quick assembly for us?" I mean, I've done hundreds of these throughout the country. We
Mm-hmm.
just do a quick virtual assembly, 10 to 15 minutes. Once again, I don't want to
Yeah.
disrupt. That's, once again, we want to stay small. It's kind of our piece here. And I usually come in and I kind of drop some fun, inspirational psychology. And then towards the end of that, I do a very quick introduction like, hey, this is what School Pulse is. You've probably seen our posters throughout the school. They
Mm-hmm.
usually have little QR codes right there in front of them. And I just invite them to participate. I let them know that it's an anonymous service. We don't know who they are, so that they can kind of feel safe. And usually students opt in. And once again, our goal isn't necessarily to opt in everybody, in part because we know that students won't.
Mm-hmm.
Schools just, if schools really want to promote as much as possible, that's great. We are willing to support all of their students. But oftentimes I found that a lot of schools utilize our service as they kind of identify students that they're like, ooh, I want to support this student, or this student needs a little bit additional. And once again,
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy, it's so simple for students to participate, for parents to participate. So that's one way that we go in is we do assemblies. Schools put those throughout the school that students can
Yes.
just opt
Yeah.
in. It's really really simple,
Totally.
and we, once again, we try to make it as easy as possible for schools, and to not get in their way. We don't want to get in their way. We just want to come to the rescue.
You want to help. You want to
We
help
want to
them,
help.
right?
Yeah, we truly come to support.
It's a little bit like me going with my dog. We don't want to cause any issue. We just want to help, right?
Yeah.
But I think this potentially what's working here also is I think that some kids might feel like working with you, team of outsiders, a little bit more encouraging and maybe feels a little bit more with this less connection with the school, right? They can talk to someone who is, I mean, contracted with the school, right? Collaborates with the school, but it's not a part of the school team. And that can be a positive, I think, factor that could potentially encourage some of these children to work with you, I think.
Barbara, you're 100% right. I mean, I could list you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples where that is the language. Now, I want to be
Mm-hmm.
super clear here. Like, our goal and objective with these kids is always threefold. We want to do everything in our power and to encourage and facilitate a relationship between these kiddos, these teens, these
Yeah.
adolescents, and their parents, guardians, whoever is like, that's their primary network. We want to do everything. I mean, we have videos about how to improve my relationships with my parents, how to have difficult conversations with my parents. But so that's our goal. Our goal is to connect them there. Our goal number two is to connect them to the professionals at the school. We love
Mm,
school counselors. We love school psychologists. We love administrators. We want to strengthen those bonds because we know that their successful relationships there will directly contribute to their success, period. Like, period.
exactly. Mm,
And we'll do everything in our power to connect those students to other resources, to other local resources there, whether they be community groups, teams, churches, etc., because those are positive things. But what we constantly hear from students, right, is the fact, number one, that on Tuesdays and Fridays we tap those students on the shoulder and we just provide this incredibly easy and accessible and gentle way to just talk about it, right? We ask questions. Hey, how are you feeling today, right? And the kids respond like, hey, having a
mhm.
really good day. And they don't respond
Yeah,
every time,
yeah,
right? Or
yeah.
like, not a great day, right?
Yep,
Not, I'm sick of school. I hate this. I hate my
yep.
friends, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just so easy, it's accessible. And often what we hear is that even though it's not a long walk from that hallway to a counselor's office, kids just don't do it. I didn't do it. I mean, I just didn't. In fact, I don't think I even thought of that. Like, I didn't even think about, oh, I should talk to my school counselor.
Right.
And I know that counselors do a much better job, I think. Even now, I feel like they do a much better job at just making sure that students understand, right, that they're there. And I think that there are school counselors there who have fabulous relationships
Mm-hmm.
with students. And that's what we want to promote. And I want to be very clear. We
Yeah.
want to promote that because we know that that's where the power is. And we just happen to be in a way that we can facilitate that. And that's effortless. It feels safe, doesn't feel risky. And so that's why I think
This
we've
is
been
very
so successful
powerful.
with our intervention. Yeah,
This
we've
is
been
very
very
powerful.
successful in our intervention.
Very powerful, Yuri, because yeah, I mean, if there are not too many kids coming and asking for help in
Yeah,
the counselor's office, that might signal that there is no trust, right?
yeah,
And it's sometimes it's just the fact that this is a person working in that school, right? And it just is
yeah,
a different, it's just a different sort of relationship. And
yeah,
it's just created by the status, right? This is someone who is hired there and it's working, it's a part of the school. And you just don't feel always safe to talk to someone who is the authority, like your teacher working in the same place. So that can be just only that little fact, but you can change this by speaking with these children. And some of them might not be getting this one-on-one sensitive conversation at home for a variety of reasons. Parents working, I don't know, second
sure,
shifts,
sure.
right after school, there's nobody home. I mean, this is a reality, right, for many children, possibly maybe a parent not necessarily knowing how to have a conversation. And so this is very, very valuable. And do you know any feedback like from children? Because I'm sure that adults will say that it's helpful and
Sure, sure.
wonderful, but I wonder if possible, do you hear any feedback from these teens? Like, what do they think
Barbara,
about this? Yeah.
we have, and I know hundreds of pages of just, I mean, all the way from, right, just simple like,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. Like that was so helpful. Or like,
Wow.
I mean, hundreds and hundreds of pages, right? Where we just, and we have for our team, right? I mean, I've created this whole protocol and we have this acronym, right? And it's not a great acronym, I'll be honest with you. I wish it was a little more catchy, but it's GT Mass, right?
Yeah.
What that
Pretty catchy.
acronym, I know it's not great. I wish I would have had ChatGPT when I created. I'm sure it would have come up with a much better one for me. But basically, it's an acronym that guides the vibe of every interaction. Like we believe, number one, our motto is every interaction is a positive interaction, right? Whether that student is coming in a fun and jovial and great way, or whether they're
Yeah.
telling us to F off or being totally inappropriate, which kids do, right?
Yeah,
Every
they can
interaction, yeah, yeah. But every interaction is a positive interaction.
yeah. Wow, that's
Every
awesome.
interaction is a positive interaction because it gives us the opportunity to connect with that student. It really does. And so the G stands for greeting enthusiastically, right? So when a kid comes in, like, hey, what's this all about? Or am I talking to a bot or blah 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 blah, whatever it is, right? And we greet them with enthusiasm, like, hey, so happy you're here, happy you said
That's
hello, how are
awesome.
you
Yeah.
today, right? We thank them. That's the T. We thank them for being there. M stands for match. We match them where they are, right? Like if they're happy, we match them with happiness. If they're sad, we match them there. A is we ask questions.
Yeah.
The next one is we seek to understand. And the very, very last one is when necessary, we offer suggestions. So
Wow.
suggestions, we give advice. But that's the very last one. So for us, right, and this is a very humanistic approach, right? It's just we do all of the work to create this safe, friendly, gentle, kind, supportive, encouraging, cheerleading type environment. And when necessary, we provide some advice like, hey, we've got a suggestion. And when we do, and this is part
Yeah.
of our protocol as well, we try to do it with permission. We ask, like, hey, we've got a suggestion or we've got a video. We'd love
Mm-hmm.
for you to watch it. Can I send it to you? Like, would you be willing to hear? Can I give you a suggestion about this? And what we found is that even just that, and for parents, let me give you this advice right now. Ask your children for permission. And not all the time. I'm not saying that this has to happen all the time, but every once in a while, just if you have something to tell your kids, and I'm sure you do. And I want you to. I feel you have a lifetime of experience that I hope you can find a way to,
Mm-hmm.
to provide, to give to your kids. But if you want your kid to be receptive, if you want their heart to be a little bit softer and a little bit open, ask for permission.
Yeah. You
I
can't just
remember,
spit it all out.
yeah, well, and we do all the time. I mean, I do it, but I'm just telling you, like in fact, I remember my one of my older sons who's 18 right now, and he's kind of doing uh, kind of a service,
Mm-hmm.
kind of religious mission. But when he was in high school, and he played soccer, and so did my other son. But this boy, uh, man, losing was tough for him. And I mean, like when he lost, I mean, it was like my team was terrible,
Yeah.
the coach was
Blaming.
terrible, everything was terrible, the ref was horrible, right? I mean, and it was just like emotional overwhelm. And I remember we were driving to a game, and we were kind of just listening to music, and I mean, doing nothing really special. But in my mind, I was kind of thinking like, oh man, I'd really like to give him a little bit of advice just specific to this game. And a lot of it was just like, hey, I think you should do this or try that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember asking him, I said, Jonah, hey, can I give you some advice? Can I give you a suggestion? And he said no. He's like, no.
No. And that
And
was
actually, I mean, I
it.
wasn't surprised. And I was like, okay.
They
And
are
of course
not
he was
they are not always ready, right? There are times when they'll
exactly.
be ready, and even like ask for it, want it. But there are times, and my kid is the same.
Yeah.
Can I say so? Even can I say something? No.
Yes, yes.
Can I give you a hug now? No.
But I like that because I feel like every interaction builds up to the next one, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
always tell
Yeah.
parents, trust the process, trust the process. You know, interestingly enough, with that interaction, right, I think curiosity ate him up. And, he's like, what, Dad? What is it? Right. And of course, I told him that, but what
with
is it? Right.
with still this
Exactly.
kind of angry kind of all right, what is this? Is something
Yeah.
magic?
What is it? What do you want to tell me? But we have found, I mean, I've certainly found that in therapy that to be very useful because I try to tell parents too, like, you're not just talking to hear yourself talk, right? When we're talking
Yeah.
to our children, I mean, we want to be effective, right? I mean, we want to try to soften them up in their heart enough that maybe our message could be considered by our children, right? They don't owe
Yeah.
that to us. They don't have to. And so I always want to teach parents and adults that are involved with teens, like, let's do things in the kind of way that will enhance their ability to be receptive and to listen, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And that's why we created that little, that GT mask. That's why, I give parents that way, like, start soft, make sure that your positive ratios with your kid are good, and ask for permission. And I find that those little techniques are very helpful.
I love it. And there's so many benefits for parents because normally with in a school that only has counselor or social worker, there is no so much collaboration or learning outcomes that parents could also get. So this is totally a different game here. And I wanted to ask you, let's say a parent struggles with their teen. There's something going on, right? They don't know what's going on, and they don't have access to therapists. They don't have
Sure,
access to a service like you provide in the school. The only people they know with whom they can talk at this particular moment is probably the teacher and then the school principal, and that's about it. And maybe another parent, right? They have a
sure.
circle of their friends of some sorts. What would you advise this parent to do or say in a situation like that, that they see that there is something going, that it's off with their child?
First of all, that it's heartbreaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we see our children suffer, right, in a variety of ways, whether it's sadness, loneliness, lack of friends, or they're not succeeding, or they're not engaged, or not participating, or they're angry, or they're being resistant, or whatever it is, right? One of the things that I always tell parents, number one is I always tell parents, play the long game, play the long game, trust the process, and I often use John Gottman, who is kind of a somewhat popular marriage researcher.
Mm-hmm.
He came up with lots of solutions for couples on how to improve their relationship and their marriage. But I often utilize this, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, right? These positive ratios, right, with their kids. And what I mean by that is what John Gottman suggested is for any marriage, right, to be good, right, to be at a good place, we have to have this positive ratio, meaning three positive interactions or engagements for every one negative, right? And really, to be more realistic and for a relationship to really be positive, what he really means is more like 5 to 1 or 10 to 1
Mm-hmm.
or more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would suggest to you as a parent that that's a really important key to that relationship. And I want to just tell you that your relationship with your child is it's probably the most important protective factor for that child. And so every effort that you make, whether successful or not, but every effort that you make to build and strengthen and improve and create a more positive environment between you and your child is absolutely, it's essential, it's critical, and it's worth its weight in gold. And so what I would say to you is your job as a parent, obviously be a parent, and we have to discipline, and we have to do those things as well, but is to make sure that you're positive, that your ratios of interaction with your child are in the positive, right? So they're 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1, or more. And the reason why that matters, I think it's actually because of just our biology a little bit. We have these wonderful brains who are really these survivalistic organs, right? And as a result of that, our brains just remember pain and suffering more because it's a protective, it tries to protect this organism. And so it just remembers pain, it remembers suffering. And that's why there has to be this disproportionate difference, right? Of more positive than negative, so that we feel like the relationship is in a good place. And if we feel like it's in a good place, once again, I feel like children are more open, right? They're more
Mm-hmm.
willing. They feel a little bit safer in that home, and they can develop. They feel a little bit. They have more of a sense that there's a sense of loyalty and trust and safety, and that's like. I mean, if you can think about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, from the bottom all the way to the top, and for a parent, if accountability and discipline is at the very top here, the very bottom is safety. Like we
Yeah.
have to promote and encourage a relationship of safety with our kids, or they just will stop talking to us. Like if every time they talk to us, there's a confrontation, there's a fight, there's disapproval, there's
Right.
criticism, our kids will just stop. Like because it's not worth it, right? It's not something they want. And so we constantly have to be building this relationship where when our kids are with us,
Mm-hmm.
they feel like, hey, when I'm with my dad or when I'm with my mom, it's cool. Like it's okay. Like
Yeah.
I feel safe here.
So I'm
So
hearing from what I'm hearing from you is
yeah,
for the parents, it goes back to prevention again, seriously.
yeah,
So we just drawing the circle here, which is no surprise. Think situations like that will happen. Something's going to happen in occur in kids' life and they'll be in a bad mood and, maybe not even speaking with you temporarily when they're home from school, let's say. But think about these situations ahead of time, build a relationship, and you cannot do it without spending some time with the child. Whether it's just watching something with them, having a conversation, going out, having these conversations in these organic moments, right? And that's how you can teach a lot without really teaching. That's really what
yeah.
happens. And then when something happens and they're in a bad mood and something happens, something's going on, then you can approach with this relationship, which is a totally different game, so to speak, at this point. And what I do, and I wonder what you would say to that when I see that my kid is in a bad mood. I just kind of like, hi, how I always have this positive greeting right after school and everything, and I see a bad mood, and oh, I see you are not in the greatest mood, but would you like to talk about it right now? Or then when I hear no, I'm just that's fine. Maybe later when you feel like talking about it, we could do it. And how was your lunch? I'm just kind of like changing the
Of course.
conversation a little bit too. Like, how's your lunch? I'm not gonna like, how's your school? It's just your lunch. Yeah. And it's kind of like try to keep it positive, talking a little bit about very simple, light sort of topics, right? Like lunch, maybe interaction with the dog at the door. And that's it. And then I'll give them some peace, Karina's in their own room, and then I'm just gonna come back a little bit later and just check on them again. Do you think that's something?
I love it. I love that, and I know that that can be very difficult, right? And I think so many
Yeah,
times we as parents, because I think truly because we love and care and are interested in the outcomes, right, in our children's lives.
yeah.
But sometimes we can be very we can respond or react out of fear too much, and I find that when
Hmm.
when we come when we can become really controlling. Like that's just what we do. Like
Yeah. Or even if we don't think we controlling it, I just want to know what's happening with my kid and I want the
yeah,
answer right
exactly.
away. But to them, it is controlling. And I don't know if your experience is like that or not, because my child is neurodivergent, autistic kids, they might take these moments as really controlling. Like it can even be magnified to them, maybe even more than to children for children who don't have autism. I just see this sensitivity. It can be even more, even though maybe it's hard to make this claim, but I see with autistic children because they've been just through a lot through
Yeah,
school and other social interactions. They are very, very sensitive to any kind of even tone in voice that can kind of like imply that you are trying to control them.
yeah, and I think we are. I mean, I think we are pretty aware of those things. And I would even say at kind of a soul or spiritual level, I just think,
Mhm.
I think we have a tendency to resist those attempts to control, right? And I think we're just sensitive to
Yes.
that. And so I always say that our language has to be inviting of openness instead of, we often provoke closeness and we don't even realize it, right? We just provoke that right out of the people we're engaging with, and for good reasons, right? We will justify it in
Yeah.
our heads. Well, I want to be involved. I want to know. I want to help. And all of those are good things. I don't have any criticism of parents. Like, I truly believe, I don't think the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think it's the road to heaven that's paved with good intentions. Like, I think our intentions matter a lot, but
Yeah.
I also want to help people to be effective, right? I want to help them to be as effective as possible with their children. And so I like your approach. One of the things that I always tell parents too is send your kids into the world with confidence, like imply confidence.
Hmm.
And so a kid comes in, right? This is kind of the typical teenager, right? Comes in, hey, how was school? Right?
You're
Fine,
gonna get
or
good answer.
whatever, right? And I know I'm being kind of generic or generalizing, but I think it's important for us, I think, to communicate with our kids, even when our kids are struggling, to communicate the message of, hey, I know this is really difficult for you, or this is challenging, or I know that this is
Mhm.
hard right now, or sorry that you lost, but I'm so impressed with the way that you've done this in the past. Like, I just have 100% confidence that you'll deal with this in the most beautiful and awesome way.
I love this.
And I
Yeah.
think that sending them into the world with confidence, like, you can do it. Like, yeah, you failed this test. I'm sure you'll find a way to do better next time. Like, you can do this. Like, this isn't working out with your friends right now. I've always been so impressed with how willing you've been or how you've done this. And those little things matter, and they don't have to be this big long sermon, right?
Yeah.
I always tell parents, keep it short, do a
Yeah.
lot of
But
listening,
this is amazing
and then
because what
yeah,
I also hear is, you let them know that you care about them the way they are. You
yeah,
do not attach other things to them, such as schooling, academics, results.
yeah,
They matter to you just the way they are without all these attachments,
sure,
because that can be very problematic and they will feel it because they just will feel everything. So intentions matters, like you're saying, the way we say things, and we might not think we are controlling, but it might sound that way. It might get through them in that way, unfortunately. And another last question, and I wanted to ask, and this is the topic that we can go on forever on,
sure.
obviously. What would you advise to a teen who um, well, is in school, let's say high school, does not have anybody so much to speak about issues at home, maybe because the relationship with the parent is not the best. And in school, well, there is a counselor, there is maybe a social
Sure.
worker. They don't know exactly how to approach them. And they just kind of stuck. Something's happening. They really don't know what to do. And I know it's a difficult question and everybody
No,
is different, but there must be some kind of strategy or even questions they can ask themselves in these moments to kind of help them in find a pathway for help.
here's what I would say, and I'm happy that you're asking the question. I actually love that question, and here's what I would say. Here's what I would say to them. I think I would give them a couple of pieces of advice, some suggestions. And the very first thing that I would tell them is, this is going to sound a little generic, but that's fine. But the very first thing that I would say to them is, the very best thing that you could possibly do in your life is continue to take positive action in any way, whether it be at your school, in your home, in your church, in your community, wherever that is. And then I would say specifically two things. Number one is I would say, the most important factor, period, like in your happiness,
Mm-hmm.
short term and long term, is positive relationships. And so what I would tell you is I would invest my time, my energy into growing, finding, making positive relationships, just
Yeah.
because when we have positive relationships around us, like the research is so good, it's so clear. Not only do things feel easier, but we suffer less. We suffer for less time. We rebound from struggles quicker. And so relationships just happen to be the most important factor in our joy and happiness in life. And so
Mm,
I would tell them the very first thing, right? People, places, and things, it's kind of an old, AA adage, right? Is put yourself in the right places with the right people, doing the right things, and just trust that process, that in time you will make acquaintances and friends that could absolutely transform your perspective, like and make living worth living, and make it fun and enjoyable, and make it something that you're looking forward to. And then the number two is, I would say to those kids, whether it be in junior high or middle school or high school or even before, is engage, 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 and find ways to just be a part of something. Whether, like I said, whether it's in your schools in the United
mm-hmm.
States. I mean, I grew up in Portugal, and there were very little opportunities, very few opportunities to really be involved in groups and clubs and teams. But here in the United States, especially here, I mean, in Utah, I imagine that it's the same. I mean, there are dozens of groups and teams and clubs
Yeah.
and opportunities. And then within the community, there are churches, there are other institutions that constantly provide opportunities for people to come together. And I would just say engage, 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 engage. Get out of your head that says, well, this just isn't my thing, or I'm not good at this, or I'm too short or too tall, and we just place all of these ridiculous limitations upon ourselves. And I would just say,
Yeah.
find something, engage. It doesn't matter if you suck at it, that doesn't even matter. Like, just go be where people are and engage and build these little renewable sources of happiness in your life. And that's what I would say. I would give them those two things: is just get out of your head, take positive action, do everything in your power to just invest. It's long term, right? When you get rejected, that just means next. No means
Mm-hmm.
next. Rejection means redirection, right? Like, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
Like, it's a blood sport. Relationships are challenging. And if you go into it with that expectation, when you hear a no, you just go on to the next and we try again. Like, that's how it
Yeah,
works.
and that's
And
also the
then involve.
opportunity to get to know some cool people, and not everybody
Exactly.
will be your best friend, but through this engagement, you'll get a chance to have one or two really cool friends. And if something happens, you can and you can trust them. Why not speak to them about what's happening? Knowing though that I guess um, understanding that they might have advice, but it doesn't mean that you have to like act on that advice.
Yeah. Friendships are game changers, man. They are game changers. They are
Yeah,
game
yeah.
changers.
Hmm.
And the other thing, one more thing that I would say to them is, I think sometimes kids, that's scary for them, right? Or they'll say, "Well, Dad, no, that's not as easy as you think," and I acknowledge that. Like, I get that. But I think what I would tell them as well is that 90% of every teenager is looking for the exact same thing that they're looking for, and that's a good friend. They're all looking for that.
They
And
are.
of course, we tell ourselves, well, they've already got their thing, and there's already this little group over here, but they're all looking for the same thing. They're all looking for fun. They're all looking for friendship.
Yeah, and
That's
you
what they're
will
looking
find
for.
that you have to be engaged with some activities in order to find
Yeah,
these opportunities.
yeah. Those facilitate it for sure. Those facilitate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's even telling in school, telling someone and asking, is there anything I can do, right? I can participate and I can do after school. So asking questions is never a wrong way,
no,
right?
yeah,
Sometimes teens are afraid of asking questions, but you should never be able to afraid of asking questions. If you hear something you don't like, you just approach someone else.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Thank you so much,
You bet.
Yuri. It was amazing. Could you tell our wonderful audience where they can follow you, where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I do have a little bit of social media, not very much, but you can go to Iuri T Mello, I think, on Facebook and on Instagram, and it's
Okay.
spelled IURITMELO. You can also email me directly at Iuri@schoolpulse.org, or you can go to schoolpulse.org, our website, and you can find me there. And of course, I'll send you, Barbara, if you want. We can give you a link to all of our videos. We've put
Yes.
together the most comprehensive mental health resource for teens in the world. I'm telling you, I know that sounds cliche, but it's not, it's true. And you can have free access to it. You don't have to put your email or anything weird like that. You can just go use it for yourself, for your children.
Thank you
And
so
we hope
much.
you
It
hope
would
you
be
absolutely.
yes, because in the show links, in the show link part, I will put some links. So whatever you would like, I'm going to, if you could email me either
You
today
bet.
or very soon, because I would like to produce it soon. Then any
You bet.
links, please just share with me so I can schedule the episode. Thank you so much. It was a fabulous conversation about very, very important topics, and there is a gap that it seems like you really are filling for schools, for especially for these teens, but also for their parents and for the teachers, for the entire system. And I would really love to promote this initiative because we need it. It's just very, very needed. I don't think we've heard something like that about something like that in the United States. You might be the only, maybe, or maybe not, I'm not sure,
Sure.
initiative of this kind. So I wish you much success with it. So it just keeps spreading and the company keeps growing. Thank you so much for this. And I
You
would like
bet.
to thank you, our wonderful audience, whether you are a parent, teacher, school principal, or whether you are just someone who cares about education, and I think we all should. Please check the episodes and follow our show, Get Inspired with Dr. Barb, so you don't ever miss the episode. Share this episode too. We would be very happy to hear that. And thank you so much, Iuri, for this wonderful conversation. Bye bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.